The UFO Channel.
You saw the craft inside, not only the test, but you got in it.
Yeah, later on it was, again, you know, we have to look at everything. We're trying to figure out how this device works from nothing. So, and its technology, you know, we can barely grasp. So, you know, obviously the placement, orientation of the components and subcomponents might be critical to the operation of it. So, I was let in one time. There were several other technicians in there doing their own thing. I don't know what they were working on, but we wanted to see where the reactor was, how it, you know, how it was positioned, you know, where the amplifiers were. And this is when, you know, I described to you there was access to a lower level to where the emitters were, which was a small hexagon-shaped area that had what I thought was a really creative collapsible doorway. And I guess the only analogy is if you take a 6-pack of beer that comes in bottles and you take out the little divider there, if you stand it up by itself, it's really strong. It'll hold a lot of weight, but you can easily collapse it flat by the side. This is essentially a metal version of that, and it was a hexagon shape with a little hole, and you can walk on it, but you can just put your finger in the hole and pop it, and the whole thing snaps over to where you have a hole you can kind of stick your head upside down in, which is what I did. I just leaned in there, and they wanted me to see how specifically how the arms that held the emitters connected to the bottoms of the amplifiers, and those in themselves were fantastic technology.
Describe the interior, what it looks like.
It's very, very bland. If I, again, was to give you an analogy, I would say it was if you put all these components in there, pretended everything was made out of wax, heat it up for a bit and let it cool off. There was never a sharp angle anywhere. Anytime something sat somewhere perpendicular to it, it had a radius of curvature to it. Everything had a smooth curve everywhere. It was all one color.
Was it all one piece?
It looks like it was one giant inject and molded thing, but there was not a seam, there was not a rivet, there was not a fastener. It was just all there.
Any buttons? No place to put in the key?
No, and there's no wiring.
You mentioned about, I'll use the term, furniture, because we both got a lot of grief.
Furniture, yeah. Well, that was because this was, I think, the first interview on TV, and I was frightened for a couple of reasons. First of all, I wasn't supposed to be saying anything, and the fact that it was on TV, and I didn't know what kind of big mistake this was. And so you asked me what was inside or describe, and I was trying to think of the word seats, and I couldn't in a million years get that out of my mind, and all I could say is there's furniture in there. And I know it sounded ridiculous, and everybody said, well, that guy can't be a scientist. He doesn't even know what the word seat is. You know, it's just stress does that to you.
It was the size of it, though. It was small.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Furniture. Well, yeah, that's quite a critical point. Everything was very small. It looked like, well, maybe that's where it popped into my mind, because I was thinking of, the children's, furniture set or tea sets you get for little kids that have, the little molded chairs and little tiny, but that's exactly what it looked like. It looked like a little furniture set for kids. So, and obviously it was uncomfortable to walk around in. When you first come in the side, you have to hunch over. The only place you can stand up comfortably is, right by the reactor in the side. So whatever built or used the thing was obviously smaller than my stature.
I'll come back to the term the kids a little bit later. So somebody did the test. Somebody was in it. They must have figured out a little bit of how it operates.
Yeah, obviously, and in the sport model, the one that I went in, they removed one of the amplifiers, which was really shocking to me. Now, the reactor and emitter, all those were in that one, so that must have come from another craft, which made me at least partially to believe that these all may have the same power systems in them, which, really makes you think that's...
So the one you had in the lab that you were working with,
yeah, the
was
components had to come from
same
somewhere
one
else.
that was in the sport model.
Yeah, but wasn't the sport models. So at you can extrapolate and say,
They all like them.
yeah, it's kind of like a Chevy. They all have the same kind of engine and they're different, but I don't know. It's all conjecture.
Let's talk about the fuel. So big, it's an interesting part of the story and a bone of contention for a lot of folks. Element 115. How did you know it was 115? Describe its properties.
Describe its properties.
Why, what does it do? Why is it so miraculous?
Well, let me put it this way. We weren't given the task to say, analyze the fuel, find out what it is, and, they just, again, the thing was, and there was a lot of push to it, was to, what is that, and do we have any? And, that's it. And these guys really do talk and think like that. It's just, what did you guys do today? We just looked at this the other day. But, if you remove the top of the reactor, there's a little tower in there with a cap, and there's a triangular piece of fuel in there, what we called the fuel, because if you put that in, everything starts to work. We analyzed what was there. Now, somehow, again, we didn't have access to all the information, but somehow Los Alamos had something to do with either keeping or storing the fuel. Now, we did all kinds of tests on it, not just us. We had all that equipment isn't there. We don't have, all kinds of interesting spectrographs. But we had it tested, and we just wanted to see where this was on the periodic chart, what kind of peaks we get off of it, and, maybe it's just, a unique fuel, maybe it's just some blend of a nuclear material. But when it became obvious that this isn't even on our usable periodic chart, that's essentially where we stopped, and said we weren't going to analyze the material and see if we could make it. We just wanted to know if it was something that we could possibly use, and it wasn't.
You told me that we couldn't make it. Why couldn't we make it?
Well, just like any heavy element, or super heavy element more specifically, the only naturally occurring heavy element's uranium. I mean, as soon as you get anything heavier than that, a larger number of protons, you have to make artificially. And that's a difficult job, because you either, like to make plutonium, which our country loves, you have to take other materials, put them in a reactor, let it run for a couple of years, and then you can, in the case of plutonium, you can chemically separate out, the small quantity of that. Now, even heavier elements, there's more difficulty obtaining. Extremely heavy ones, like 110, you have to make that on an atom-by-atom basis, an accelerator, where you're, accelerating single atoms or beams of other atoms, near the speed of light, smacking them together, and it doesn't make a usable quantity. You may get the interaction you want, and it flies off and hits a detector, at a fraction of the speed of light, and you go, that was 115. And, that's when they say, we synthesize 115, that's what it is. It's not like a cup pops out and we've got some, It's just, a particle comes flying out, and we go, well, at these angles, at this magnetic moment, at that speed, it will be 115. And if you get a peek at that, boom, it comes off. It's a little display on a thing, and right, we made 115. But, to actually make usable quantities, forget it. It would take, the entire resources of a country forever, to get a gram or so.
How much was up there?
Well, they say there was 500 pounds of the material. Now, was that recovered in a craft? Was that separate? They certainly didn't synthesize it, but, where it came from, I have no idea. But again, Los Alamos had something to do with it, because they renamed it LA 1000. I know there are shipments back and forth there, but I think it had to be, from what I understand, it had to, if you assume a cylinder of this material, it has to be machined into a cone, and that cone sliced, it has to be stacked first, like a bunch of quarters stacked on top of one another, then machined into a cone, and then sliced to be usable in the reactor. Now, all of that had to do with the metallurgical guys, and we weren't even allowed to know why, but I knew that was necessary for whatever it's worth.
Reactor doesn't work without 115. Did you ever do an experiment to try some other kind of fuel?
No, no.
Okay.
I mean, quite honestly, we really didn't know what was going on there. I mean, we had a basic idea of, at least we thought. Again, we just had to report to what was going on, so it's not like you can ever say, you know, we really don't know. We've been working on this 2 weeks. You better come up with something. So it's, you know, look, we think it's an accelerator, and you know, we've identified that that's, you know, 114, 115, 160. It looks like it's 115. It's an element, and you have to explain this stuff to guys that absolutely have minimal scientific background, and just try that when you're dealing with stuff that's not even, you know, from the earth.
So how does it work? I mean, how does it work? What you learned, you get a piece of it, a triangle. It's in, and how does it? What function?
Really, you just put the. I wish I had that model that.
It's in my car.
Show me. Is it really? Okay. You just put the fuel in there. There's a little cap that sits on top. And then as soon as you put, yet nothing happens, but as soon as you put the lid on, it turns on. There's no on switch. Yeah, it's just, it's like it attains resonance or something. It just is on. Which makes you wonder, how does it work in the craft? Because no one's taken the lid off, because in the craft, it sits on the ground and there's a conduit that sits over it and goes to the top of the craft. So, but it's not clear how anything works in the craft.
And it generates gravity.
Oh yeah, yeah. It generates its own artificial gravitational field, and that lifts the craft off the ground.
We've had conversations in private about how this accounts for some UFO cases. I mean, it in effect achieves invisibility in a sense. You can be saying right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because light, it will bend it around there, and sorry, I didn't leave that. I left out that pretty important observation. When the craft was up, I mean, you could walk underneath and look straight up, and you can't see the craft until you step to the side, and it becomes visible again. It's quite amazing, you know. So it bends light, just like you know, you could see on a hot roadway in the summertime how heat would affect that coming off of you know. But here you're in a much more controlled situation, and the shape of the gravitational field, the artificial field around the craft, if you look at that and then we're able to stand at different vantage points, you can just look around it. Now, this isn't something new. We know this from, you know, looking at faraway stars. They call it gravitational lensing, where a star might be over here, but because we're looking around another star, it bends light, and, you know, but here again, here is an artificial source, a machine that does this, and that's everything. But yeah, like I said, all the science fiction things become reality. There's your invisibility cloak, there's your, you know, impenetrable force field, here's your field propulsion system, and, you know, here's you're even beginning to tamper with, you know, potential time travel.
It occurs to you, hey, this could work not only in space but underwater. Maybe that's why the Navy's interested in running the program. I mean, it's odd, isn't it, that it's the U.S. Navy running the program out there?
You know, that never occurred to me. No, I swear to this, I never even thought about that thing operating underwater.
It would work just fine, though, wouldn't it?
I guess. I don't know. I don't understand why it wouldn't, but it'd be interesting to see what the water does.
You had said, I remember, I could barely get my pointy little head around it when we were first talking about this, but that if somebody had one of these and were out in space and wanted to come to Earth, in essence, they're not propelling themselves toward Earth. It works differently, right?
Yeah. In fact, the two modes that the craft operated on are, they label Delta and Omicron configuration. Delta meaning using all three amplifiers, and Omicron obviously meaning just one. And the way the craft would work is, let me get rid of my reactor here. Now I'm going to draw a really bad flying saucer. All right, so normally you would have the three amplifiers hanging, or the three emitters hanging down in Omicron mode. A single one would swing sideways, and you would have the other two sitting like that. Now, what happens is the two that are facing straight down essentially act like a pedestal where they just keep the craft steady. The one swung out to the side creates a gravitational distortion off the edge, and these in Omicron configuration, these things really fly unstable. They do not look like any sort of high-tech technology. To give you an example, if you put a bowling ball in the middle of your bed and 2 feet away you take your fist and you push it down, the bowling ball rolls towards it. And that's exactly how the craft operates. It focuses a single emitter and creates a gravity distortion, essentially a divot in space-time, and the craft rolls forward, in the distortion. So that's basically how the thing moves around. So, and this is opposed to our conventional propulsion, whether you're using, a jet, a rocket, a propeller. We always take something and accelerate it out the back using the action-reaction principle and, push forward. And these guys are doing it exactly opposite. They're creating a distortion in front and sucking towards it.
When element 115, of course, when you're talking about this stuff, it did not exist. We're still years away from it. But you had told me in that first interview, look, we believed that there was an island of stability somewhere, 115, 116, somewhere in there, and maybe someday we'll be able to make it. It didn't exist then, but they've made it since. Tiny little piece, as you said. When that news comes out, some people said, aha, Bob was right. Others people say, aha, Bob was wrong, because this isn't 115 at all. It doesn't behave anything like what you said. There's not 500 pounds of it, that's for sure. So,
there's not 500 pounds of it.
Like they had up there. We couldn't make 500 pounds of it.
No, obviously not. And, well, look, you're talking about physical quantities and also, atom quantities from fabricating it. But, the island of stability isn't something that we came up with. That's been theorized since probably the 50s, that it just looks like in the, physical makeup, or just the geometric stacking, I guess, of protons and neutrons. It's certain combinations, they're stable, and other combinations, they're not. Well, it looked like further up in the periodic chart, boy, if we have ever had anything with 115 protons or something in that range, it looks like that might become stable. And, that was actually in our minds when we were trying to identify it. I said, boy, this thing is off the charts. Are we looking at the island of stability? And I'm beginning to get lost here.
Well, I was asking
where are we
about
going with this?
The 114 that was synthesized.
Oh, yeah, so the 115. Again, I think what did they whack together? Calcium and, I don't know, bismuth or something like that. But they did a unique collision and accelerators, and they made, a few atoms of it, and they went, this is, 115. And it decayed. Now, obviously, this is a stable material. But
a different isotope.
Yeah, it's like I said, there's, we have hydrogen that's, 1 on the periodic chart, just like 115 is 115. It has 1 proton, 115 has 115 protons. Well, there's hydrogen, which is protium, which we're all familiar with, hydrogen gas. It's flammable, it's stable, it doesn't, decay. But there's, 2 other isotopes of hydrogen. There's still hydrogen, there's still element 1, and, one we call deuterium, has 2 protons. It's also stable, but it's different. It's heavier. And there's another one called tritium, which is radioactive, and it decays. About half-life about 12 and a half years. Again, they're different isotopes. They have different numbers of neutrons. They have the same amount of protons, so it's the same thing. No doubt 115 has, God knows how many isotopes. We know at least 1 is stable. there's probably, several that are unstable. And, again, if they keep playing around with it, and I don't see why they wouldn't, I'm sure they're going to find a stable isotope. And
The whole idea of anti-gravity propulsion, we've heard it from scientists. Lazar doesn't know what he's talking about. That's impossible. It violates this. It violates that. You've heard that. You've dealt with it. I mean,
yeah, I was one of the guys that say it violates this and
you would have
violates
said that before, yeah.
Yeah.
And you would have said things about UFO people. This can't be. I mean, you were pretty dismissive about
right, which is the way I shouldn't be, and I give a lot of people, crap about that too, because, look, if you're going to work in a scientific field, or you're going to be a scientist in any capacity, the most important thing is to keep an open mind, because, look, back in time, they said, 30 miles an hour is the fastest a human body can possibly take, and that was written as a scientific fact. I mean, that's what scientists believed then, and they all agreed on it. And, how many other things are we, they said, this is the way it is. You cannot do that. You have to keep an open mind. Look, flying saucers, I used to laugh at John Lear and have a good time of it. I still do, but that's a different story. But, I have to give him credit. He was talking about, they have flying saucers up at Area 51. Really, John? I just be an adult now. But, there's a lot. And as far as the technology, yeah, it violates a lot of what we know, which concerns me, because some of the things we know are laws. And the reason we call them laws and not theories is because they've been verified time and time again, with experimental proof. And, that's supposed to be cast in stone. So you don't want to see anything that violates the law.
Do you see any aliens up there? I know several of the people who submitted questions wanted to ask about aliens. I mean, you did see
this came from, now the diagram, you want to call that seeing an alien. The only other time, and I know it's because this one incident I told, that one time I was being led in and dragged my hand across the craft. We went in that door, there's a corridor to the right, and you immediately turn to go to the labs. Well, as you turn to the right, there's a door, and it has a small window on it that has the little wires running through it. I peeked in there as we turned the corner, and that's when I saw, I've told you this before, there were two guys there and a little tiny thing that they were looking down at, and I just walked by, told to keep my eyes forward, and, I think I told Gene that and a couple other people, and I said, well, you probably saw, well, not that Gene said that, but, well, you probably saw an alien or whatever. I don't think that was the case. I think even to this day, I think they had a little doll or something because they were trying to find out, whatever size creature would fit in the craft, and, they were.
Do you recognize the term the kids? Did you ever hear the term the kids?
Yeah.
And that's referring to?
The creatures that ran the craft.
So they called them the kids wherever these craft came from. But you never got an answer how we got them?
No, that was just incidental talking that, had nothing to do with me.
You've heard all the stuff over the years. Of those who don't believe your story, they believe you're either making it up or it's disinformation, that you're working for them out there that's spreading the story. So you're making it up?
No, sorry.
Could you make it up?
No, really? No, I'm sorry. That's way too much for me to handle. No, really, I don't. And I know, look, a lot of people are into, UFO stuff, and I just kind of exploded onto the scene and said, hey, I don't follow UFOs, I don't follow reports, I don't know who's researching what, I don't know the names of people involved, and but on the other hand, I know people make their living doing this sort of thing. And, if I just pop in one day and say, hey, this happened to me, I did this and this and this, but, I'm out, I'm not part of this, I can understand how that can interfere with their, income stream or their belief system or whatever, and they need to attack me, but look, what I said happened, absolutely happened, period. That's it.
I've been speaking about you for a long time, a couple times a year, I'll go, I'll explain the story from my perspective and defend you, because it deserves to be defended, and I believe the story as it's been told. But you know, you go out there and you hear all kinds of crazy theories about what you're doing and who you work for and everything, and there are those who have a lot of trouble with it.
I can understand that. Look, if the tables were reversed, I honestly could not say I would believe my story. Look, there's not enough, I can't provide enough information, and in some cases won't, to back up my story. And if the tables are reversed, I have to take that other side and go, look, guy, unless you can, provide more proof, I just can't say that, I'm behind it, and I have to agree with that.
So why did things go south for you? It seems like a scientist's dream to work on a program like this. Why in the world would you walk away from that or tell anybody else about it? Were you picked because they figured you would tell somebody about it?
No. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Well?
What happened was, it was kind of more of a personal nature between my wife and I at that time. Now, it's not like I had a 9-to-5 job and they said, come out at these hours. It was really a sketchy setup that they would call me. The place at EG&G by the airport, what was that?
It was on Sunset Road, yeah.
I think it was called something, I can't remember. Anyway, they would call me and say, it's now 8:45. By 9:15, we expect you to be, at the building and board the craft, and, the airplane, not the craft. Yeah, so, and it would be at a moment's notice like that. Well, and look, I was so really thrilled to be part of this project. I was keeping with the whole program. Like, I couldn't talk to my wife. I said, look, I'm working at the test site there. It's on secret nuclear stuff, and that's it. But again, I get calls in the middle of the night. She can't hear who they are. And I said, I got to go, it's work. You have to go to work at 8 o'clock at night and you may not be back, until the middle of the night or the morning. I said, yeah, that's just the way it goes. And that happens, time and time again. And, if the phone picks up and, my wife picks it up, they hang up, and, so then they call back, I pick up the phone, yeah, it's Bob here, and, yeah, okay, 2 hours, I'll be there. Well, after a while, that seems like something else. In fact, maybe not after a while, but pretty quick. And, it's something I could laugh at now, but it was not funny then. And, I kept with the program, never said anything to her, and, she thought I was having an affair. And, as time went on, going back and forth, she really didn't have a job or anything to do, so I started, since I was making money from here now, I got her flying lessons down at McCarran Airport, and to give her something, to do. And anyway, she started having an affair with the flight instructor. So, I had no knowledge of this, but, part of the requirements of the project and the security requirements really were to have my phone monitored. Now, I'm going back and forth to work, and now they are listening to this affair progress on the phone that I know nothing about. And, one of the main things is that you be, mentally and physically stable. And they're really concerned about that. So it reached a point one day where they didn't call. And they were kind of in a quandary at that point going, what are we going to do with Lazar? We got to see either this, affair fizzles out or they break up or whatever. So, I just stopped coming in. I stopped getting calls. I called Dennis. I don't get return calls. And, days are going by and, now Tracy's going back and forth and flying and doing stuff. She's busy all the time because, she's got a boyfriend. And, I'm beginning to get now I'm beginning to get really concerned. I mean, these guys are so over the top with security, and we want to know everybody that knows this material. We want to know where they are 24 hours a day, so on and so forth. And so they're not even calling me. What's going on? And so I started getting concerned, and it reached a point where I don't know where the breaking point was, but I'm pretty sure it was Gene Huff, the first guy that I talked to, and said, kind of spilled my guts. Hey, look, this is what I've been doing out there, and told Tracy too, and
hey, let's go see him.
Yeah, well, I also had, man, we're skipping over lots of stuff, but I had there were charts of the test flight days and which days that they were going to go over the mountain and do what they call high performance test. So those days, statistically, on that highway they went by, the lowest number of travelers was on a Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, I think 8 o'clock was like the test night. So I knew how long they were going to be in the air. I know all that stuff just from memory. So I told these guys, I said, this is going to be an unbelievable story, but this is what I've been doing. I can go out there and show you guys, but I'm starting to get concerned that they don't like me anymore for some reason, and I'm just going to disappear. So I just want somebody else to see what I had done in case I'm just gone one day, and at least you guys have a story. So we go out there, take everybody, and the story. We go out. It's 8 o'clock. Everything happens like I said, and it lands, and then now it finally hits Tracy. Oh my God, he wasn't having an affair, and so. She breaks off the affair, and it is just a giant mess.
It's embarrassing to bring this stuff up, but I mean, it is the human side of the story that people, but the other human side, as I alluded to it in my talk, is that there's stuff that happened to you in that period after they caught you. The third time they went out, they got caught. And so they want to talk to you, and they're very upset. Dennis in particular, the guy.
Oh, yeah.
So they want to talk to you, and then a whole series of really bad things start happening. Share with us a little bit about what that period was like, because it's hard to convey it, and that it was really going on, but it was real. Yeah, it was well, I guess it started when we got caught. When we got caught that time. I can't quite remember which time that happened, but we had gone out again with the test flight data 2 times and been there on Wednesday nights, and Gene Huff, and we had an ever-increasing amount of people that we began to trust to go out there, and which was getting really ridiculous. I think we even brought a motor home out there, and we're parked out on the road because nothing.
No, once you start getting away with something, you get a little cocky and thinking, boy, they can't see us. And so we're out there, and Gene and I kind of joke around sometimes and say stupid stuff, pretending that someone's out there listening. So we're sitting out there on the dirt road. The test flight time is coming up. We're sitting, leaning on the front of the car, and Gene says something to the effect is, well, I hope out there they don't realize that we've got those other 150, team members out back with, automatic weapons and everything, and they're getting ready to storm the base. And I said, they can't possibly know about all those guys, And so right after we said that, now it's pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Not 50 feet in front of us, you saw a little green thing fall on the ground and roll to us. And they're both sitting there, what? And as it turned out, there were a whole bunch of guys standing there in the dark watching us through night vision scopes. And after I said that, a guy dropped one and it rolled over to us. So they turn on, turn on the lights. Okay, everybody come with us. And,
And I had told the story about the break-in, the car. I mean, I remember going to your house after a break-in, and you had the Uzi out, and you're ready to shoot somebody, and then the break-in at the car at the gym. That stuff really happened. It was really going on.
Oh, yeah, that was with Mario, the guy who's a truck driver now. He was going to, we were just working out at a local gym near us, and I was at this was at probably the highest paranoia stage, and I had an Uzi and the the front, and, you know, Mario and I got to the place, and I said, okay, it's loaded here, we're safe to go outside, and we open the car doors, we close them, and we may even make a joke about it. We lock the doors, we try and open them, okay, the car's secure, we go in there, and, you know, joking, you think we'll be safe for half an hour? And yeah, I think we can do it. And we, you know, we come walking out, there's all the doors, the trunk's open, the Uzi's laying out there, and my wallet, you know, and we just looked at each other, this is impossible, you know, but yeah, that happened. Mario tells that story probably every day.
You, at some point, you decided to talk to me. You know, we did that interview in Silhouette.
I can't quite remember how that happened. There was just too much going on. But yeah, I know at some point, that was really, again, Lear was making a big deal. He started naming off the people that he knew that suddenly disappeared. And he said, you know, unless you talk to this guy, George Knapp, you know, and if you go out on the air, they'll be afraid to talk to you. I said, John, they're not afraid to do anything, you know. But I called you anyway, or he did.
And then you know, it kind of hits the fan. They're really mad at him, and then that's when a lot of really bad stuff started happening. And then we decided to record an interview just for safekeeping.
The UFO Channel is asking the public to send in their UFO, UAP videos to be displayed on the UFO Channel. With your contribution, you will be helping us bring full disclosure from the government about the alien presence on Earth. Don't forget to write a comment, and don't forget to push the like and subscribe buttons for the UFO Channel. Regardless of what any publication or anyone says, only the truth matters.